I'm excited to get back to our series on supercharging the immune system because there's a virus about these days. There's often different sicknesses and viruses around, and it is worth taking is a holistic nutritionist, and you'll have to forgive me today because I'm actually recovering from a virus. I'm in like day 6 or 7 or so. But I'm excited to have Cassia on here today, and we're going to explore exactly that. How can food be medicine? Should we care, what we're putting in our mouth? Because every single day, everything we are putting down our throats is either empowering every cell or it's not. It's not. It can be doing one or the other. All right. So, yay, there we go. I see you, Cassia. So awesome. Okay, well, I'll just bring you in. All right, I'm excited to jump into this one. Hi, Cassia. How are you today?
Huh?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you feeling, Julie?
Pretty good, pretty good. There's a little frog in my throat. I do have my hot tea. Cheers.
Good. What's in your tea?
Green tea and a little honey.
Perfect.
I do have some lemon. I should have added that, but
Honey and lemon, always a good, traditional remedy.
it's good. And I was just telling everybody I'm excited to have you on today and to explore this very foundational concept, food as medicine. But before we jump into that, I'd love it if you could introduce yourself. Tell us, how did you come to be a holistic nutritionist? I'd love to hear a bit of your story.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Cassia. Hi, everyone. I am a holistic nutritionist as well as a private chef and an herbalist. So I combine all of those into my food as medicine, very therapeutic food that I cook for people. And so I've been a private chef for about 10 years now, doing mostly like meal delivery and cooking classes with people, very tailored, people working with people one-on-one. My specialty is gluten-free, dairy-free, and cooking for people that have different food allergies or dietary restrictions. And so the last about 10 years, everywhere I've lived, I have, I'm a big traveler, so I've lived in different parts of the world, but everywhere I've lived, what I've done is just basically healed people, in a very tailored, very one-on-one, my background is holistic nutrition, so no body is the same. So we all kind of need tailored treatment. And the last year I've gotten more into cooking for like conscious spiritual retreats, as well as doing some cooking classes and doing, different private events, like different small intimate gatherings. I'm leaning into that more than the weekly meals for people, and that's been really fun.
That's awesome. I love it. I have gotten every recipe of yours I've gotten a taste or been over to your house and had that food. It was delicious. It wasn't like good, just good. It was delicious. And then knowing how that you find well-sourced foods always feels different. You can feel, and Anyway, I'm sure we'll get into this, but
The
I
key
just
is healthy food tastes really good and having it elevate us to the next level. That's what I want my food to do.
yes, exactly. And I think this is definitely something we share because all my years in New Zealand and eating food close to the source and then coming back to the States and the shock
Yes.
of uh, food does not taste like food. Why does this all taste like cardboard?
Yeah.
Did you find that? Because you were in Guatemala, right?
Yeah, I lived in Guatemala for 5 years before moving here to Nashville. And I found that there's a lot of superfoods there, which, I'll tell you guys about my book later, but I based my cookbook around all of the amazing superfoods that grew in people's backyards there. I mean, just all over, in people's backyards or in the markets, like the traditional markets. You can still find a lot of those beautiful traditional ancestral ingredients, but people are really disconnected from them. And so they're shopping at the at the supermarket and just kind of getting like imported foods. And I'm like, look, guys, there's incredible food in your backyard. There's some weeds that you could use in your smoothie. There's some moringa growing over there. You could just go grab some leaves. So I actually wrote a cookbook, inspired by, it's kind of I'm from California, so my California style plant-based cuisine, really high vibe, beautiful, vibrant cuisine inspired by the superfoods from Guatemala. But yeah, just to your point, like people are, there's just such an abundance there, but it's the education and the knowledge of how to keep connected to those sources, right? And I think every
Yeah.
country is different, or everybody's different, but
Yeah, absolutely.
pretty disconnected from the source. From
Yeah, and it takes some real proactive
yeah,
energy to start to wait a second, how would it look like? How do I reconnect with my food, with the
yeah,
original source? And that's
yeah,
what we're here to do, to help at least spark that conversation. Um,
yeah. And
and
that's food is just, it's real. Anything that's not been processed, it's like in its original state. It's been grown organically with love. It's one ingredient. It's not a packaged food with multiple ingredients. I mean, I suggest people, either get their produce from an organic farm that's local,
yeah,
that has been, the soil is still healthy and has nutrients in it, because a lot of the factory, these huge conventional farms, just they've lost all the nutrients in the soil. And so it's really important that we, yeah, again, like know where our food is coming from.
hmm yeah, and this is just leading us right into how can food be medicine? Or because if it's not medicine or healing, then it can be toxic, right? Creating that imbalance.
Yeah,
So I love that concept. If you could unpack that for us, and forgive me, I'm going to
yeah,
turn on some AC because if for anybody who doesn't know,
sure.
my body's processing this virus at the moment, and I still want to show
Yeah,
up because that this doesn't have to define us. Just because our body goes through different rhythms is not like a huge condemnation. That I'm so grateful to use food as medicine and many other things to help empower our bodies. So, what is that? What does that mean
yeah,
exactly? What?
yeah. So medicine to me really is viewing food as our health insurance. I mean, truly seeing it as something that will actually create longevity in our bodies versus something that will create dis-ease, right? So everything, you talk about this a lot, Julie, everything we put into our bodies has the opportunity to feed and nourish our cells, elevate us, or create more dis-ease, imbalance, blockages, stagnation. So we really want to just be mindful of everything that we're intaking. You know, that can be applied to everything really, but when we're talking about food, I think of it in terms as of like our health insurance, truly, because we invest now in, you know, incredible organic, high vibe foods and superfoods, and make sure our pantries are stocked with spices and culinary herbs that have so many antioxidants, and we start to develop new habits around foods. I mean, that's our prevention for the future. That's our longevity right there. It all starts. That's the foundation. It all starts with our diets, and you know,
So,
our we have this vital force that runs through all of us, and we really want to be just mindful of nourishing that. And there's definitely foods that will deplete our vital force, and you know, toxic, processed, just so many toxins in our processed foods these days. But if we stick to the source, as nature intended, then we really can't go wrong.
hmm yeah. And can we even unpack that further? Like,
Sure.
sometimes I think we need things spelled out, like,
Yeah.
specifically. If we were going, I mean, it seems obvious to us where we're going to head in the grocery store to find
Yeah.
medicine food versus, and there's a lot of things out there that say, this is, you know, organic or this is that. But what if we're really looking to empower our bodies? Where are we going to head? What practically will we be putting into our hands or our cart?
Well, if you're at the grocery store, you know, I was always taught in my nutrition training, like, stay on the perimeter. You know, the perimeter is where you're pretty safe. That's where the least processed foods are. So that's, what is that? That's like the dairy, the meat, and the veggies, right? Those are foods that are mostly in their purest forms. I mean, there's a huge spectrum.
Yeah.
But you know, in the produce, you want to be shopping organic, or at least if you know, are on a budget, you want to be mindful of the 12 daily dozen, the daily 12 daily dozen, I think they call it, or the dirty dozen. Um, so you can look that up. It's sort of changing all the time, but there's some uh, fruits and vegetables that definitely are more sprayed than others, and there's some that are, you know, more conventional, but they just don't have to spray them as much. And so just be aware of that. And you know, with if you do eat meat and dairy, you know, I for someone to promote a particular diet. I think we're all so different that you know, eating intuitively is very important to me, and supporting my clients in eating what's best for them. So if you do eat meat and dairy, just make sure that you're getting, you know, either like free range, grass fed, these kind of key words. There's a whole lot of greenwashing in there too, where you're just, they can like label something one thing, and then it's like, oh, they have, you know, they still have chemicals, or they still have like that animals have been injected. So it's just really important, if you're at the grocery store, to be mindful of these things. My rule of thumb is just to just source from all of my local organic farmers. I mean, if everybody has access to a farm, or someone, you know, down the street, or somebody, you know, within like an hour's drive, I would imagine there's a farm, or, you know, even like, or you can ship meat these days. You can ship dairy. You can order online from farms. It's so crazy where we've come, but there's some incredible farms. Like there's like a Dutch Meadows, I think they're called, the highest quality dairy and butter and milk, and they don't use any. It's totally grass fed animals, and no injections, no vaccines, because you have to consider all of that too, hormones. Um, so I just encourage, if you can just go straight to the source, great. But if you only have the grocery store as your option, then, you know, just kind of learn what are the best things to be mindful of when you're getting all of these things.
Yeah.
I don't know the question, but
Yeah, that's great because everybody is trying to navigate that. And just one thought as we're processing that, um, I see on these like holistic health groups, someone's like, how do I get off of diet soda or
yeah,
something? And I'm always like, do not put it in your cart.
yeah,
Like, if
yeah,
you are trying to get off of sugar, if you know that sugar is also a culprit in this, right? For
yeah.
creating imbalances. If we're trying to do that, do not put it in your cart. Don't put the
Just
sodas in
avoid
your
it.
cart, right?
Yeah. Just don't even go to those middle aisles. Stay away from those middle aisles. Just get vegetables, meat, and dairy, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, and it does take some shifting, of course, of our eating patterns uh,
Yeah,
to do that.
exactly.
What are
We're all from a different, I mean, you know, I've been practicing this and educating myself for probably 20 years. So I have a lot of knowledge that, you know, it just comes naturally now to me to read the labels and look for, you know, the toxic stuff. But it is worth it to educate yourself on that. And there's a couple of accounts that I could recommend people follow to get really educated on these topics. People
yeah,
who
what
just
are the
focus on these like toxins and in our foods and the processed foods. And you know, the idea is not to be extreme either. Like we don't want to um, just go cold turkey. We don't want to, you know, deprive ourselves of the joys of eating. Like I'm all about moderation. And so it's not about being neurotic. It's not about, you know, going extreme with all of this. It's like a little bit of sugar is not going to kill you. You know, if it's just like a little half a teaspoon in your coffee or something, there are always alternatives to like white sugar. You know, you could use monk fruit or you could use coconut sugar instead. There's always more nourishing alternatives to the like main culprits, you know?
yeah,
So it's just about being mindful of those alternatives and also not being too neurotic. Like I've dealt with some clients who have, you know, gotten really neurotic about things and then they just end up guilt tripping themselves for, you know, cheating or whatever, and that's not mentally healthy either. We have to keep like a strong mind around this as well. It's so important what we're telling ourselves, you know.
yes,
So
exactly. Because we're feeding ourselves, yes, physically, but then
yeah,
mentally.
yeah,
If we're eating something nutritious and that is like medicine to our body, but the whole time we're thinking, I
yeah,
hate this,
yeah,
it's not helping. We do
yeah.
need to partner our mental state, right, with
It's
our
so to be in alignment with what you're putting in your body. So it's like if you decide to do a little cheat and have, you know, some sugar in your coffee or have that piece of cake, it's like I really want you to enjoy that piece of cake and then move on. Like enjoy it, don't guilt trip yourself, move on and start the next day, you know? It's just it's there's pros and cons to this lifestyle, and we have to just be gentle with ourselves too, you know.
Yes, absolutely. And just going back to what you're touching on alternatives,
Yeah.
and I just want to bring in a couple of elephants into the room that are always in these conversations because,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad that you're an expert on this. Uh, that is gluten and dairy. So many people are finding that they have allergies or that they just feel ill or sluggish.
Mm.
One, why? Why are they feeling this way with gluten and dairy? And then what else could we have instead to replace those things?
Yeah, so there's so many philosophies around this whole idea. So my personal approach is that yes, everyone is sensitive to gluten and dairy, but it's because it's been so almost like bastardized, or like it's just been so hybridized, from the original form, like we're talking about. Uh, there's dairy in its original raw form from a healthy, grass-fed, pasture-raised animal that's just been enjoying a happy life and not been injected with all this stuff. And then there's the wheat, originally from Italy or wherever that they used, to make pasta. And it's like this beautiful, pure form of wheat that isn't so robust with gluten, but we've hybridized it over the years, over like thousands of years of the cultivating it. And it is just like, it's too much gluten, to create the consistency of bread that we're used to. So it's like fluffy and, just kind of, that's what gluten does, is it binds and makes the consistency of the bread really like nice and chewy. And so anyway, we have just hybridized it to the point where we haven't evolved with that. Our bodies haven't evolved to digest it. And so there's wheats that there's types of wheat, like einkorn is a more like traditional old world preserved wheat that has less gluten in it, and so a lot of people can actually tolerate that. There's raw dairy that still contains the enzyme lactase to actually digest the lactose that's in it. But when we pasteurize and when we heat it and remove all the fat and all of the wonderful other cofactors, we're not able to digest it because it's not a real food anymore. It's like, oh, this skim milk and like grab in the grocery store. No, it's not what it looked like when it came out of the cow.
Not at all.
So yeah, so really, I do believe that that humans are meant to eat wheat and meant to eat dairy. But the way that we have just hybridized it and just turned it into these like anti-nutrient, frankenfoods almost, we can't digest it anymore. And so I just suggest to people to, either do an elimination diet for a couple weeks and get off of those things. And then start introducing like a einkorn or just a more traditional wheat and a raw dairy. And also there's like the raw cow dairy, but then there's also goat dairy, which for some people that have like lactose intolerance or lactose issues digesting it, they can tolerate goat dairy much better. So it's really just a matter of tuning into your body and experimenting. I mean, what I always learned in my training was that the gold standard really is your body telling you, what's right. So it's that ability to tune in and listen to what your body's telling you and what you're sensitive to, and just trying out like eliminating something for a while and then adding it back in like its purest form.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great. I love that.
on gluten dairy.
Yeah, that's so true. If we don't rebuild this relationship with this, most are too busy. We're running right past their body, running it into the ground. But we've got to start listening if we want to thrive, because
Yes.
I mean, that's fine. Some people do love to outsource everything to other people telling them what to do.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
not long-term health. This is not
Totally.
sustainable, and no one's going to know your body like you do, right?
It's true. It's true. I am all about empowerment over our health, over our longevity. And, it's about the choices that we make every single day. And once you start to change your diet and start to eat more intuitively and just listen to what your body wants, and making more mindful choices, then you actually do notice, you do see a difference.
You do, big time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you feel so much better. I feel like your confidence increases
yes,
because
yeah,
you don't feel like a victim. It's a shift out of being a victim. I don't know. I'll just eat whatever. And yes, I feel bad afterwards.
exactly.
But being empowered to no, I took the reins.
Yeah,
I had my first experience of totally clean eating, just like we're talking about in the but well sourced, right?
yeah,
That again, like you're talking about eating from only holistic, healthy foods, and
yeah,
the relationship with my body is new. It is so beautiful. I feel energized. The brain fog's lifted. So many things have shifted for my physical body. Energy is increasing. Um,
that's
the,
beautiful.
yeah, and the only way we'll do this is, like you're saying, eliminate, shift,
Yeah,
focus your diet in a certain direction for a while to see
yeah,
where my body thrives or just
yes. Cultivate that connection with the mind body, spirit connection with your food. I mean, it's just so important. And when you start making better choices, more mindful decisions, then it really truly it does change that relationship, and it makes you feel confident and empowered, and like you have a little more control over it. And it's a definite mind shift, a mindset shift. I've done a lot of cleanses in my life, and it's just incredible the benefits that come, especially mentally, when you can see that, oh, wow, like I actually have gone 5 days without, whatever food, XYZ, or I've fasted for 3 days, and that's just amazing. I'm so proud of myself, and my body is actually feeling better, and I'm thriving, and the brain fog is gone. Like it is very, very empowering, and it's like this feedback loop that you've generated, and that's powerful.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because
Yeah,
it, and I know there's a lot of people that probably even listening here that are playing this game, and it can get to the point of just toxic that where everything, gosh, it feels like everything I'm eating isn't helping me heal. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and we could go down that path because there's so many things with food, but I would like to touch on things like if you have a viral load in your system, like
Yes.
I'm processing this right now. What's an ideal diet for us to be eating in this state?
Okay, so you've heard the old adage, feed a cold, starve a fever, right?
Say,
A lot of people, huh?
yeah, say again that what?
Have you heard feed a cold, starve a fever?
I haven't heard that actually.
Yeah. Okay, maybe that's like an old wives kind of thing. But I think first of all, when you start to get sick, there's things you can do, and I can talk about that. Or I
Yeah.
don't know. Let's start from the beginning. You start to feel sick. What do? There's a couple
Yes.
things that I like to suggest when I start to feel off, and everyone, because I'm so tuned in on like every minute of like what's going on in my body. I can sense the instant it's off. And so what I do is I pound some echinacea and in a tincture form. I take that every hour, like a couple dropperfuls an hour. That usually kicks it. And everyone has a different kind of remedy that they use, but that's my go-to. I love it. I'll also hit the elderberry syrup,
Yeah.
and I make elderberry. So it's just a wonderful traditional herbal remedy that literally does boost your immune system. It gets it activated, and it starts, fighting off whatever pathogen has come around. I also like to do, there's like a traditional Chinese medicine approach where you can simmer a whole onion with some ginger and garlic, and sometimes I'll throw in fresh turmeric, because turmeric is so great for the inflammation that comes around when we're sick, and we want to keep that down. So I will throw all of that into a big pot and make a huge batch. And this is especially if you're having a fever. So if you're feeling, like your fever, like you're starting to warm up and you're starting to feel like some of that's going on, you do this traditional Chinese remedy, and it is just gonna kick it. It makes you sweat it all out. I've observed it very often work wonders. There's something about it generating the sweat, and it will just just sweat out the illness or whatever pathogen has come around. So those are my three like go-tos, when I start to get.
Yeah,
Huh?
and that one where you cook it up, you said garlic, onions, ginger, turmeric.
Yeah.
You cook it
Yeah.
up. Do you eat the garlic, or do you just cook that for a long time and then drink the broth over time, or?
You strain it and you drink the broth. And sometimes I'll do it with honey and lemon, like what you're drinking. And I'll just drink that all day. I'll drink it all day, and it'll actually like activate the fever so that you can like overcome it. It'll help you break it in the night almost. You'll just like sweat it all out. So it's just an amazing remedy. And again, like, starving a fever, feed a cold, starve a fever is like what they say. So when you have like flu-like symptoms, naturally your body's not going to crave food, right? I mean, you have to tune in to your body's needs when you're sick, especially. But I would suggest in general for a virus, to do a lot of broths, a lot of warm soups, and just really minimal foods, so that your body can really focus on fighting the virus, and just rebuilding.
Yeah.
So it's best to just like do a lot of liquids, and I do a lot of chicken broth. Like, a lot of people think that I'm vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for like 25 years. And so now I incorporate some fish and chicken into my life. And I think chicken broth is one of the most healing things in the world. And so if you can get a really nourishing, healthy chicken broth from a good source, a free range source, then that's going to be your best bet. I mean, to drink that all day as well with some and a little bit of Himalayan salt is delicious.
Yes.
That's just going to feed your cells and, just make you feel better.
Yeah, and bone broth as well, or just chicken broth.
Yeah, basically I use those interchangeably. Yeah, a bone broth as well, but I feel like chicken broth is probably the best when you're sick, rather than like a beef broth.
Oh, okay.
Still good, but yeah, I like the chicken better for that.
Good.
Yeah, that's Frequency Wellness says homemade chicken soup is her jam. Yeah,
Yes.
it's so healing. Another thing that Chris Kresser recommends, who's one of my favorite functional medicine doctors, he recommends that the first sign of sickness to juice ginger and drink that, kind of how I drink my traditional Chinese broth. You juice ginger, and you have that on hand in the fridge, like juice a couple pounds of it, and then every day you do like 2 to 4 ounces of that with some hot water and some honey and lemon to make it more palatable. But ginger is just incredible for like any respiratory illness or anything viral that comes in. it's powerful if you drink it in that dose. Like that's a really
Yeah.
therapeutic dose. But Chris Kresser, just he swears by it. So that's a good one to add to the arsenal.
Awesome. I love
Yeah.
it. And a lot of this I've been doing, but there's some things I'm like, oh, I should have been doing that. And that's good. I
Well,
hope that whoever's watching is taking notes because there's some great points here. Be sure to do this, this, and this. And
well, send in some notes that we post along with this video. I'll send
that'd be
some
great.
notes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because we're gonna put this on YouTube as well and a couple other
Great.
places. Um, and also just on the elderberry syrup,
Yeah.
like can I find this at the store? And if not, what do you recommend I do? Because like I don't have that. I
Well,
don't have elderberries growing out back.
you can find it at Whole Foods.
Okay.
There's different brands. Yeah. I make it. I'm happy to give some to you. And yeah, I mean, you can find it at Stillhouse Herbals. Our friend Wendy, she has it here in Nashville. It's definitely, a beautiful traditional remedy that most Western herbalists like me will make and sell locally. So if you
Hmm.
know a local herbalist, you can find elderberry syrup. It's also fairly easy to make. Um, if you can get some dried elderberries, there's even fresh elderberries that you can harvest if you'd like. It's a little bit of a job, but um,
Yeah, but it's so wonderful. Again, when you go through the process, then we're getting close to that food source again.
yeah,
We're getting reunited with the truth of where our food's coming from. Um,
yes,
I
yes.
love that. I love that. So, and then my next question, okay, when we're dealing with the virus, yes, here's what to do, here's where to start. But in general, I think we should all be asking, how can we be supercharging our immune system to fight anything that comes? What would
Yeah.
you put into a day-to-day diet for keeping your immune system supercharged?
Yeah. So there's, like you said, there's like the general immune boosting day to day, and then there's the acute phase that we just talked about. So you wouldn't necessarily want to be doing all of these things when you're sick. That's just a caveat. Some things, like what I'm going to recommend, like adaptogens, for example, you don't necessarily want to be taking those when you're sick, because those are more of like a long-term building, rather than like a acute illness kind of thing. So one thing that I love on a daily basis to create longevity and to just boost my immune system and strengthen my vital force is medicinal mushrooms. They are the best thing. Everyone should be taking them. They are incredible for, um, you know, supporting the terrain in our gut, which is where all illness starts, right? Is like an imbalance in our microbiome,
Yeah.
and medicinal mushrooms are fabulous for supporting that environment in there is our terrain. So reishi is one of my favorites. Maitake, turkey tail. There's lion's mane, which I use a lot fresh. You can get that sometimes from the farmers markets. There's a really wonderful formula that I like called, I think it's Stamets 7 or something, and I can actually go grab it. But it's Paul Stamets, who's like the mushroom guru. He has his company, and he makes a tincture with, I think, 7 of the main medicinal mushrooms, and it's just incredible. And I take it every single day. And then I
Mhm.
also have dried powdered medicinal mushrooms. I have some cordyceps that are actually really great for respiratory and for creating more oxygen in the blood. Cordyceps is one that like runners will take
Mm.
on a basis to like build their oxygen, like strengthen their lungs.
Mhm.
Um, so I add that to my coffee sometimes. Yeah, so medicinal mushrooms are basically the best thing you can do for building a supercharged immune system.
Awesome.
Yeah. Are you
And
taking Julie?
I do like a mushroom coffee. Is that a good way to get those mushrooms in?
Sounds great. Yeah, that sounds like a great way to do it. Um, Probably has a lot of, therapeutic benefits. There's like therapeutic doses of these things, and then there's just kind of like, yeah, I have it in my coffee sometimes. So if you are dealing with some kind of a chronic illness, you might want to be like doubling your dose or making sure you get like a therapeutic dose.
Mhm.
Um, but just for general longevity, boosting your vital force, just a couple droppers of a tincture every day, or like a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of a powder every day is great. And you can add it to smoothies. You can add it to like truffles or, little bliss balls, things like that. Um,
Cool. I have.
yeah,
I did
wonderful.
not expect you to say mushrooms first off the bat. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's for one. Yeah, so wonderful. They're just super healing. Yeah.
Wow. And then they're more active, adaptogenic, right? To help
So,
your body.
so yeah, they can be a little, I think of them as adaptogens.
Mhm.
There's some like herbal adaptogens that would be considered more of like a traditional adaptogen, which helps you um, adapt to the stressors of your environment and kind of take the edge off of any stress that you're having. So they're just more, they're gentle. There's
Mhm.
some herbal adaptogens that are going to be more powerful. These are more like a gentle strengthening over time.
Mhm.
And so they're like what I said about the taking them when you're sick, no problem adding like a reishi to your broth or something like that.
Mhm.
But it's things like astragalus that I don't necessarily take when I'm sick. That's like a very strong adaptogen that we use for building. And so we want to be allowing the body to just kind of do its thing rather than, like being in this building mode. Like, I want strength. You just want to
Yeah.
like let it thing. So astragalus, I love to add to like when I do chicken broths and I cook with chicken broth, like
Mhm.
just regular. Love to add astragalus as well as the medicinal mushrooms.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's another really good one. Just in general immune boosting. Seaweeds are really great. You probably didn't expect me to say that
Yeah.
either. So iodine is really important, and a lot of us just aren't getting enough.
Yeah.
Um, really having like nori snacks or things like Instagram might kick me off. I have my little timer set for Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just letting you know. Um, so yeah, things like dulse flakes that you can add to your salads, the nori sheet snacks. I love those. For getting extra trace minerals that are lacking in soils these days. Um, Also adding those to soups and broths. Yeah, there's arame and nori and kelp and all different types of seaweeds that you can get to get that extra iodine and trace minerals. What else? Oh, fermented foods. Huge for me. Huge. Yeah, just so important again for strengthening the gut and making sure we have healthy, strong um, bacteria in our
Yeah.
gut to fight off any pathogens or funky bad bacteria that we might be exposed to. So fermented foods are just incredible for just general health and longevity. Um, and I do sauerkraut a lot. I try to do sauerkraut every day, just a couple tablespoons. You don't need to overdo it.
Yeah.
Um, Same with kombucha. Kombucha can be kind of high in sugar, so you want to be careful about making sure your kombucha is like digested all the sugar in there, or look at the label and see, oh, like, you know, I would say on anything under 5 grams is fairly good for a bottle of kombucha. Get some good in there.
Good
Yeah.
to know. And I've got a giant jar of kimchi and I love it. And as well as are spices helpful? I think that would be. I tend to think whenever I've got a cold, like you're saying, bold broths, soups, warm things, but then I spice them up as much as I can.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing I was going to actually say is, you know, thinking in terms of food as your medicine, spices and culinary herbs, like I mentioned in the beginning, they have a ton of phytonutrients and antioxidants in them. So really like adding doubling the spices in a recipe and doubling the culinary herbs can be just the best habit that you start from now through the rest of it. You know, that is just a great way to boost your immune system and boost the nutrients in every meal.
Good. I love hearing that. I needed to hear that because we just barely put stuff in our culture generally versus when you go to India, different parts of Asia, oh my goodness, they do not hold back and
Yeah.
you feel it. And
Right.
I felt healthier in those cultures and I knew then to help with any it helped to kill off like parasites or stuff you could get as you go was to have lots of spice, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Another thing about spices like cloves, cinnamon, thyme. I mean, that's a culinary herb, but kind of all of the ones that you think about as culinary, all of those are antimicrobial. I mean, even cumin and coriander and cardamom, all of those they have volatile oils in them that are antimicrobial, and that's probably why you feel better. That's why they have so many spices in their curries, because they're dealing with a lot of amoebas and parasites and, you know, cholera, that kind of thing. So they do benefit from doubling the spices, tripling the spices in their curries and foods.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very important to I just always like by default I just add extra spices, extra herbs to all my.
This is so good to know. I will. I'm gonna load it up now. I just needed like permission or something to like overload with the.
Totally not overdo it. You cannot overdo it. I mean, there's nothing bad about spices and herbs. You can't overdo it. Sorry about that. That was my timer. Take me off
Yeah.
Instagram. I was gonna say you're going to get some of the digestive help in a lot of those spices, which are considered, you know, great for helping move the bowels and expel any gas. So you're going to be targeting your digestion. You're going to be targeting the amoebas and parasites if they come in with the food. And you're going to be getting extra nourishment because they're antioxidant and phytonutrients. They're awesome. Awesome to add to
That's
your,
awesome.
just like make sure you have, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Thank you. And we've just
You're
got a few
welcome.
minutes left, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to see how can people connect with you? What are you up to in the world? All of those things. Where can we find your cookbook?
Yeah, I have my cookbook right here. I wanted to show you guys. That's it.
It's
Put it down.
awesome.
Can you see it?
Yes. It's
So
beautiful.
it's called Cocina Física, Plant-Powered Recipes Inspired by Guatemalan Superfoods. You can find that on Amazon, or if you're local, I always sell them to friends at a small discount. And then, yeah, so you can find me at Infused Holistic Kitchen, or my website, infusedholistickitchen.com. Mostly right now, I'm just doing private events and retreats. And I've been really, really loving cooking for like spiritual retreats and providing food that's just really high vibe and elevating enough to help people like integrate all of the work that they're doing. So it's been very rewarding for me to provide all this like therapeutic, high vibe food.
Yes, and it's true. Like everybody I've seen who has been on these retreats come back glowing because you integrate that food into the into the whole. It is holistic. It is all
Yeah,
serving to move into healthier, better spaces. It's awesome.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that is great. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up today?
I think I covered all that I wanted to say about like the viral when you're sick with a viral infection. Yeah, I wanted to, oh, and teas. I also wanted to mention the teas.
Mhm.
Antiviral. Lemon balm is extremely antiviral and it's wonderful to drink when you're sick, along with some peppermint. Holy basil has been actually shown to be wonderful for helping with this COVID situation. So do your holy basil, which is also known as tulsi, one of my favorite culinary herbs. And yeah, so just I think that's all I wanted to say about the
Good.
viral stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. Again, it's food and drinks as medicine. It's
Yeah.
all. Uh,
Feeding your cells, nourishing your cells. It's foundational.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's important, especially in this environment where and for the rest of our lives, we're gonna have different colds or different potential threats that can imbalance our bodies, and it's up to us to learn all these details and to implement
Yeah.
the.
Yes. Empower ourselves for the long haul, for longevity's sake. It's our health insurance. That's for sure.
I love that. I've never heard it as health insurance, but this is absolutely true.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
it's health. If it's not health insurance, it could be moving towards health decay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've definitely been on that route before, and I think if we if we eat without thinking, we can head
Mhm.
towards that.
You're right.
But thank you so much for showing up today. I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom. You have so much to give in this area. And I would love to know, of course, for anybody who watches this replay, if you have takeaways, put them in the comments below. If you have more questions, please do ask those. And thank you again, Cassie. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Ashley. It was so
Thanks.
much fun. Great.
Hey, I
Hope to
appreciate it.
see
Have a great day. Bye.
you too. Bye, everybody.